And we're live here on YouTube and on Facebook. This is Omi's production studio coming at you with another live performance and discussion. Today we are going to get serious. We spent a lot of time just going through. Hold on for 1 minute here. Got a lot of stuff to get right. We're going to get live here in a second. Can everyone hear me okay? Let me check out Facebook here. How's everyone doing? I see you waving, Carter, Morris. I see you waving. Who is this? Okay, Ross, Amanda. I see you waving. And our discussion is going to lead us into the topic of who does Africa belong to? Who does Africa belong to? I am Omi Inka 7, also known as Sherelle Garth, and I will be discussing this topic today. And just bear with me because I am attempting to record in 2 different places. So, what I wanted to talk to you about was the topic is all over the internet and the discussion. We've got to get serious now, and I had to come away from the singing a bit and really get into some real issues that pertain to us being landless. And you know, people, how I feel about us being landless. I am just appalled and besides myself that here in the 21st century, we are still landless, and now Baptus are going to Africa to steal the land away from the original people. Now, I thought maybe they would have learned their lesson when they took the land away from the Native Americans and who were not the indigenous people, but we as Africans are the indigenous people. So I want to say for the record, we have a lot to make a decision on. And I want to just break it down into categories. As you know, Julius Malema indicated that he is for the blacks and Africans in particular, and that he will fight for the blacks as well as the Africans. That means that he is going to take up our issue to address any issues that we might have here in the United States. So folks, we might as well get ready for it and start the process of looking at how we are going to be a part of the struggle over in Africa that they have now waged. I am so proud of Julius and the other people that have been representing Africa and speaking out on behalf of obtaining that land back and asking the question, and we should be asking the question, how does 10% of the population control over 70% of the land there in Africa? How? How are they capable of doing that? Now, I understand that Julius has gone to them under several platforms to ask the Africanos that are white to give the land back and to peacefully give the land back. But I understand to no avail that they have not made any leadway on that situation. And the main thing that we have got to understand is that we as an African people are going to have to look at how and why the Africans there are still penniless and broke and poor and still living in substandard conditions. Just living in substandard conditions. Hold tight. Hello? This is who? This is who? Okay, how are you? because I did make contact with one of the ladies there, and she had emailed me. So on Facebook, she also contacted me. Okay, so what exactly is going on? And because I was trying to get a clarification on the event for Westside, are they still having that, or is that coming up this month? Not lately. I saw some earlier, about 2 months ago, but not lately. Uh huh. Hmm. And that's you said next Saturday and Sunday? Okay. Hmm. Oh, okay. Hmm. Oh, okay. Well, I know right now, I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be out of town because we had a family member that I had to go and tend to who was in the hospital. So I'm still trying to get a clarification if we're going to be able to attend, but I was definitely interested prior to that happening. But I'm going to have to sit down and see if that's feasible, if we're going to be able to get a way to go to that and support you guys. But can I ask if you can call me back a little bit later? I am on the air and have put the people on hold, so I need to get back to them. But if you could give me a call back, I would certainly like to see whatever we can help in the future with my husband and I. Okay. Uh, Probably it's about one or something now. How about 5 o'clock? Because I'll be all done with this session and I can talk freely then. Because I'm talking real in a hurry here. Yes. And what is your name again? Yeah. Okay. You came out with Denise Bracken. Let's see. Okay. Spell your last name. Guthrie. Okay. Anyway, what's your other name? Okay. Okay. I'm gonna get a hold of oh, what's your brother's name? Carlton. Okay. He came out before me. I came out in '72, so some of these names sound very familiar. Give me your phone number so I can put it in my book here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Well, okay, Cynthia. I look forward to talking to you a little bit later on this evening. And thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it. All right, bye bye. Okay. I guess you probably think I'm crazy. The room is filling up. Hello, Eugene. How are you doing, Eugene King? Let me put my glasses on. I'm having a little hard time seeing you guys in here. Um, we're on two stations here today. So well, let's see here. Okay, hello, Mark Lotz. How are you today? And Alwyn Morris, DJ Kosh Horton, how are you? Arthur Ray, Ross, Amanda, Carl, what is this? Carter Morris, how are you? Let's see if I got everybody. Eugene King, okay. All right, we're gonna go back on the air here, just bear with me. That phone doesn't ring until I get on the air, isn't that something? But nevertheless, I wanted to speak to our population here to get some input as to how you guys feel about what's going on in our dear mother Africa. A lot of us have been really tuned into this. I've been trying to get politically correct and tune in to listening to Julius Malenta, as well as some of the other elders that are speaking on behalf of our mother Africa. Isn't she being raped royally? And it's about time that the Africans have waken up to this point and put their good foot down and said, we are going to do something about this, and we are going to disenfranchise these people off of our land. Now, how is it that you can go to another country with only 10% of your population in Africa, trying to mend over 70% of the land? You must understand, I've been saying all along that African people must get some land. And African American, let me say the indigenous blacks here on Turtle Island, we must get some land, because if we don't get some land, that land is going to be negotiated, just like when they went over to Berlin and sat down and had a discussion over how they were going to split up the land in Africa. They meditated on it, and they sat down and had meetings and discussed how they were going to disenfranchise those African people of their land. And they did that, and they went about taking the land by any means necessary. And then when these Africans finally woke up and saw what they were doing, now they want to scream bloody murder. How is it that you can scream bloody murder when in fact you know you killed an awful lot of their people to disenfranchise them and to remove them from their land? And you literally went in the middle of the day and had these meetings in Berlin. You never invited any Africans officials, and you made these decisions. Now when the roosters come home to crow, you are crying bloody murder, that this isn't right. Then why can you go to everyone's country and try to colonize them and then take over their land? These young Africans are not going to stand for this. They mean business, and they are ready to go to war. And they are ready to take their land by any means necessary. And you know what? They've included us as their brothers and sisters as to taking up a mantle for our cause as well, including us in their cause as well. So maybe it's time for African Americans to sit down at the table with our dear African brothers and sisters and talk about what is at stake. And do we have anything to gain in this situation? And can we truly get our land back? Because ladies and gentlemen, we need to be getting our passports. Because a number of us need to already be over in Africa now at the table discussing just what is at stake here. Can we acquire any of the land there in Africa? Can we come over to help to reorganize Africa? They've made a mess out of Africa by not only stealing their land, but putting these people in captivity and letting them live their lives in huts, knowing that there is enough production there to build brick homes for those people. A lot of those people don't even have land to grow their own food on. And they are landless, and they are starving to death because there's a lack of food. Now, it's bad enough that they're looking at this economy like they could come over, dump anything in the country, like steel, for example. I understand that steel has been dumped into Africa against their will, and the Chinese have brought the steel, knowing that now it makes Africans' economy for steel to be backlogged, and they are not producing and selling the way they should. Well, they have taken something from the people this time that is very valuable, and that's the land. The land belongs to the people. And as I've always said, that if we don't get any land before the next century, we are going to be a permanent underclass. And how is the world's smallest percentage of people dominating when it comes to looking at ownership of land? Now, let me say hello to Ralph Moore. How are you, Ralph? Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. My Facebook followers here. I hope you are a follower. If you're not a follower, you need to leave the room immediately and go and sign up to become a follower. There's a lot of you that have been following me and paying attention to what I'm saying. Now, I am in full term today, and I'm not just playing around singing. I am serious about what is happening to our economy and to our dear, loving brothers and sisters over in Africa. Right now, Julius is holding his own, and I'm sure he's had a lot of threats on his life, and I'm sure that they have gone after him, and I'm sure that they've done everything they can to his family. But we have to pray his strength, and not only pray his strength, be in solidation so that Africa is for Africa. And how is it that you can allow us here in America to be poor, to become landless and poor? How is it that you can take away our reparation and then tell us to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps and not give us the ability to compete with Europeans, and then say that this country needs to be blessed? Well, if this country keep doing low down and dirty things to people, I don't think there'll be a blessing in store for this country, because you cannot colonize the people everywhere you go, and you cannot have secret meetings making a decision on how you are going to separate the land from the people and to redistribute it to your other significant others and other white folks. I want to say that Africa is for Africa. And you've told us so many times to go back to Africa, our homeland. If you have told us to go back to Africa, then why are you over there minding the Africans' business on their land? And then not wanting to redistribute the land back to them, want to charge them for the land. You didn't pay anything for it. And that's what I don't understand. The Africans acquire so much stuff that the Caucasians acquire so many things that they did not pay money for, that they have stolen and stockpiled. And the land is one of them. And I think the Caucasians have met their match now. I think that they are going to be ready for a rude awakening, because these young Africanos are not going to tolerate it. They are getting serious about what they're going to do. And I hope you keep your eye on the subject and the topic. I hope you are watching as well as praying. Hello, Joel Taylor. Thank you so much for watching. Now, I hope you guys do something more than watch. Why don't you go out and get your little white coat so you can also speak? I don't know what it requires for you to get your little coat to speak. Let me see. I'm trying to see here. Well, I don't know how to get your, let's see if that, no viewers invited yet, okay. Okay, add viewers to be in your record. Let me see. Okay. Okay, I don't know if I invited people or what is going on. Let's see. I don't know if anyone could see that. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can type something here. Just wait a minute. Okay. I'm gonna type something here. Just hold tight for 1 minute here. I'm trying to see if I can get anything else going here. Okay. Hello, Pastor Frank. How are you? How are you? Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely, lovely afternoon. Isn't it gorgeous outside? It's great. As I said, I'm on a serious note today. Omi can only take a day off every once in a while to be into comical, singing, musical things. And on a serious note, a more serious note, I am very concerned about what is happening to our African family because it is Africa for Africa. And what concerns Africa over there, many, many miles away, concerns us here in the diaspora. And we are for Africans abroad and for here in the diaspora. So we've got to become conscious about the issues and the discussion on the table. We can no longer be sitting around chewing the fat, watching television, but we really need to be negotiating, talking about getting our passports so we can send representatives over to Africa to assist and to aid the brothers and sisters there. Oh yes, we should be talking about that. And many, many times I have discussed that we need a plan. I have discussed that we need to have some land. And I've been saying that for many, many years now, that you cannot continue to go without having land. You must be connected to the land because the land is inhabited by the people. Now, the Caucasians should have learned from a long time ago when they disenfranchised the Native Americans off their land and made them landless and gave them the grunt of the land and took land from them that had oil on it and fought them off of land that had oil on it. So the Africans are speaking all over the internet. And there are many representatives that are coming to speak from Africa. I don't know all of their names. I've just heard of Julius Malenta, who has been courageously speaking out by any means necessary. He's challenging everyone on the topic of his ancestors' land and him being an heir to the land. Now, we have nothing to offer our children in the way of a legacy. Say legacy. For your legacy. We must have legacies to leave to our children. And without land, we have no legacy. And most of what you see Caucasians doing is setting up trusts and putting their land into the trust funds and delivering these trust funds to their loved ones so that they have a way to continue and perpetuate the riches in their family. Now, it's unfortunate that a large portion of our wealthy people have not come together with some of us lower socioeconomic people, they think, or middle class, and said, hey, let's figure out how to get the land in the hands of the people. Let's figure out how to take money and then reinvest it in the land so that we have land set aside for our African American people. Now, one thing that we must understand is that we cannot become gatekeepers or house Negroes and sit up and say that the Africans are wrong for what they're doing, and we cannot voice our opinion against what they're doing. They're fed up. Enough is enough, and they've gone through a lot of waiting for these people to step off their land politely. Now they have to be Mr. Enforcer themselves and enforce what is right and enforce what has to take place. Now, to my Facebook people, I am airing on Facebook as well as on the YouTube station. I'm speaking to you. Let's get some conversation going in a room. If you're able to set up the apparatus where you can correspond and write something, I wish that you would. And is there anything I can do to help you to be able to strive and write what it is that you're thinking on this topic? I'd like to hear from some people today. And to my Facebook people, please go down and subscribe to my Facebook channel. And don't forget to be a follower. Also follow me. I'm not asking you to donate any money. These shows are perfectly for free. I'm only asking that you will follow the leader and be a part of our tribe. We're building a nation, as I told you, keeping track of who you are, trying to get to know who you are. Whenever the time comes, I want to be able to personally go to some of you that follow me on the channel and speak to you about different issues. But I can't do that if you're not a follower. If you're just coming, taking up space in this room, and you're not a follower, and you're not on to the topics that I am reinforcing, then you might be Mr. Reinforcer yourself. Don't say that. Okay. All right. Just kidding around on a Tuesday. But nevertheless, we have got to get some land. And if our land is sitting over there in Africa, then they're minding our business. And we've got to get on top of this topic. How many of you are watching this topic on YouTube on the different hearings that they are proposing and having a discussion with various different Africans that are speaking out and supporting their one thought, one belief, and one mindset? See, we haven't gotten together on that. They have become unified. I watched as they were unified in their uniforms and outfits and hats and shirts. They were 100 strong, and that shows unification. And I'm glad to see that they have formalized their army and they're 100 strong. The only thing that I regret is that we are not together here on Turtle Island. We are scattered in our thoughts, we're scattered in our philosophy, and by having one mindset, we don't have the mindset to speak on this issue with one voice. So where do we stand on this? Write some comments down below. Right below there under the YouTube channel. Write your comments on this topic, on this emergency situation where we've got to have some conversation and we've got to have an opinion about what we feel about the natives getting riled up and finally standing up for what they believe. How do you feel about it? What's your opinion, YouTube? Come on out and speak to me. Now, I know that there are a number of people that frequent YouTube, so if you're out there watching me today, this is Omi Inka's production studio. My name has changed from Omi Inka 7 on the YouTube channel, and also the Sherelle channel has combined into one. Hold on. Gotta let the men go through. Okay, once again, I like to say that we are looking at building it. And what I mean by that is that we're not just going to it's going to come a time then they're going to solicit for our opinion about what is going on and the heightened of the situation in Africa, because it could heighten at any given time, just like it could in our hoods. And there's a lot going on that I could talk about in our hoods right now. I don't want to trouble the water. I'll let someone else address that, but there's a lot going on right here in our own little Africa and our backyards. As you can see, there was noise going on in my backyard. But there's trouble right here. Trouble, trouble, trouble right here in our own United States on Turtle Island, as you know. But the real issue is, what do we do about it? Do we have any opinions there in YouTube? Can you voice your opinion down below? Tell me what you think that should be done. Should we be getting ready to get our passports? Should any of us think about taking that trip over to Africa? And should we be making contact with Julius to let him know what our position is on giving support? He's already said that his position is to service African Americans and general, and particularly, more particularly, to address the issues of the African. So he's looking at Africans in the diaspora, which is us, and Africans abroad. We are one people. There's no colored folk over here, or Negroes, or African Americans. The question here today is to be or to not be Africans. And if we choose to be African, that are in Africa watching, I want you to know that we as a people here are deciding for African abroad and Africans in the diaspora. We are one people. We are not divided. I don't care what they tell you about your ancestors sold you into slavery. You are one people when it comes to the issues and causes of our Africans over in Africa who are struggling with getting people off their land. Now, in a minute, you won't have them being as kind as they are. You're going to see a little opposition going on from some of these Africans who are going to be confrontational. Now, we are headed for the 400-year mark in the year of 2019. We know that a whole lot of stuff is supposed to kick off on 2019. That is the number of years that we would have been in slavery for over 400 and some odd years. And then we need to stop and take a survey and assessment of where are we, educational wise, politically wise, and economic wise. Where are we? And are we still penniless and broke without land? And if we are, how do we acquire that land? What do we do to acquire land? They're always talking about flipping homes. Well, hell, they're flipping the homes of someone who lost their home through a foreclosure. And they're putting their homes in the ROEs and tucking them away and putting them there for their loved ones so that they will have a legacy. Say it with me. A legacy for your legacy. We must remember that a legacy is not something to play around with. Our children want some ducats and want us to leave them something so that they will have something to develop and grow from. But we cannot watch our brothers over in Africa struggle with this thing and act like it's not our problem and step aside and shake our heads and say, Just as we see them, just as they go, by the grace of God, we go too. So we must understand that we must establish that we have unity, one voice and one people and one cause. And we must stand on that. And you don't go telling me, but I'm part Irish and I'm more white than I am black. Because once you have any amount of black blood in you, you're black and you're an African. Like it or not, you're an African. So we have to come to some type of decision. Where do we stand on this? Should we be taking platforms to speak on this topic on behalf of our dear brothers and sisters over in Africa who are yet still struggling who are yet still going through. But we must understand that some of those people, Mr. Enforcer's not going to walk off that land too easily. He might put up a fight, and we might be going into another war, and there might be war on the front line. And if that should happen, then I'm sure that the problems that we have here in the United States with Mr. Enforcer are going to escalate in order to keep us from going to the rescue of our African brothers and sisters. We must understand some people have no business over in Africa dealing with the Afrikaners' business, and especially their land. They're out of order. So these Africans are going to speak out against it, and they're going to speak rather harshly, more harshly than they're accustomed to the African people speaking. So we're going to have some serious problems in a minute. So we might as well get ready for it. It may be quiet here on this plane right now, but it's getting ready to rear up. And you have to be in position and to determine where you stand. Hold tight for a second here. I have a little problem here. So I know these airways are being monitored, and I'm glad that we have some various different people planted to find out what's going on in Omi Inca's room. I'm glad, because it's nothing that I'm hiding from Mr. Enforcer, because we must discuss these things like intelligent elder people that we are. We're not the children, we are the elders, and we should be having these discussions. And do you think it's strange that we are carrying on conversations like this? We should be, because we're the eldest parent group in the race of people. And if the elders don't stand up and be parents, who will? We are the parents of all of the nation, and we must be able to stand up and talk about what is really real and what's going down in our African country. Because I see them living in little shacks, and I see them barely making it. Their farmland is drying up. They don't have water to grow their crops. And then their businesses are going without. And then not to mention the aesthetics of the community needs upgrading, and they need to manage better than what they're doing. They need a lot of help over there, a lot of help. And right now, just to challenge these people in these political meetings to discuss with them about their decision to get off their land, it's enough to bring on all kind of havoc and wreak havoc into their camps and their communities. These people eventually are going to be retaliating against these young soldiers. And when this happens, you're going to see war break out right there in Africa. And most of these Africans are getting prepared for a war. Yes, they are. They know that that's what it's going to take to make this transition of getting their land back. So I can speak to Mr. Enforcer and say, you better quietly come along and do as they say and get off their land. Because this is not Mr. Gilmore's property over in Africa. They don't play the way Mr. Gilmore do. It seems like these brothers are serious and 100 strong. And they've waited for this hour when they had to retaliate. They've been back in the cut, relaxing, letting everything go down, because they didn't want to create no havoc. Right now, they're ready for a war, and by any means necessary. So in our opinion, how do we feel about this? Where do we stand? And do we have an opinion on this? And if we do, why don't you voice it and write it down below here on Facebook or on your screen, and here on YouTube, write it down below and give me some comments about where you are with the status of Brother Julius Malema and his very, very stern discussions and positions at the podium. He is really possessing a pulpit, and he is not talking jive. When he goes up there, he is politically offering them a plan of a way of escape to escape this harsh war that could come up on them. He's offering them a way of escape. Yes, he is, family. Now, let me go over here and take roll call again and see who's in the room. Let me see who's all here, ladies and gentlemen. These are family members over here that stick with me through thick and thin. I want to welcome them. Got two people. Lori Randy, how are you? Lori Randy Welch. Patricia Govington, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me. Pastor Frank, as usual, thank you for coming out. Joe Taylor, we want to thank you for coming out to support us. Eugene King, Ralph Moore, Mark Lotz, Anaway Morris, DJ Crush Horton, Arthur Ray Brandy, Roz Ananda, and Carter Morris. Thank you so much for coming out. Now, do you guys want to write anything? You can if you want. I don't know how to get you up there writing something. Let me see here. I'm pushing every button I know. Add viewers to be in the room. Okay, let's see. I've already invited some people. Let's see. Okay. Let me see. I'm doing everything here to see if I can get you guys writing something. That doesn't help. Okay. Still not doing anything here. Okay. Well, I think it must be something that you have to do, because I've tried everything over here. Add viewers to be in the room. Okay. I don't know what else I can do. Okay. Just adding him. Okay. Well, anyway, people, I went to your site. I went to the site to see if I can do something so you can begin to write and voice your opinion, but there's not much I can do on that end, and maybe you might need to try to do something to see if you can get yourself to be able to write something. Once again, this is Omi's production studio, and I am broadcasting here live here in Indiana. We like to say welcome, welcome, and we're broadcasting in two places now, on the YouTube channel as well as on my Facebook. And I apologize because Facebook had been challenged for a while, and there was no broadcasting coming on because I was on YouTube. So I want to be able to be fair and do both of the channels so that I can start monetizing my YouTube channel. And once again, you have got your Omi here. I like to be your advisor and also your advocate, and thank you so much for listening in to this channel. And sometimes we can be rather informative on this channel. How you doing, Anthony Raspberry? Let me click you in here. And I'm doing two hands here today, so bear with me. Thank you so much for watching, Anthony, and following us. As I was saying, is that this channel has been, available on YouTube for a while, and I'm trying to get more exact in my future shows. And YouTube is really reworked YouTube, so I had to learn it all over again. But nevertheless, we're on here. We're unmolested. There's no one bothering us, and I thank God, because they got a lot of CID already. They've already hired a lot of people to watch me. I want you to know that. So I don't have to worry about them shutting me down anymore, because they got people in here that are taking notes. So you better take notes good and tell the story good, because when you report on me, you better make sure you got it right, because Omi don't play that, okay? because we have a lot of Negroes who are still house Negroes and who can still be bought with the price. But we've got to come out of that. We've got to stop allowing ourselves to be bought with the price, and we got to stand for what's righteous and just and behind our own people, because we're in a serious mode. Look at Chicago. Right now, war has been waged on Chicago, and there's so many things that are happening right there in Chicago, right in front of their faces, and it's not all gang related. Some of it, I understand, can be planted and causing them to have to bring the trucks in and roll up on our brothers and sisters. And Lord forbid, if they should damage or hurt any of us, God is going to send his angels, his ministering angels down here. Because our weapons are not carnal through the pulling down of strongholds. And we are not without weapons, because we have the words that are chanting words that are powerful. And our words are like a two-edged sword. They cut going in and cut coming out. But we still have to prepare ourselves, because our weapons are not carnal. We must find a way to use the magic that was left back here with us by our ancestors, our dear ancestors. And we see that Toussaint Louverture, Boukman Dadi, and Jean-Jacques Dessalines only needed at least 300 people. So they went to the grave sites and they summoned their ancestors and told them to get up, we got a war to fight. And they woke their ancestors up. And their ancestors got up like the dry bones that they are. And they aligned themselves and locked arms with those Haitian brothers and sisters. And they stood on one accord, with Jean-Jacques Dessalines taking over after Toussaint Louverture was thrown in prison by a default where they fooled him and threw him in prison. And Jean-Jacques Dessalines had to take over, and he came with his sword, and he was slinging and knocking heads off, taking no prisoners, leaving no one behind, evaporating all of the Frenchmen so that they can have their freedom. And they did get their freedom, because they were held in slavery, working the sugar canes and producing a numerous amount of wealth for people that could not share the wealth with them. Well, they called on the ancestors Eli, and they called on the ancestors Eli, and they picked them up, and they made them strong, and they won both of the wars. The story is not being told enough in our communities about our dear heroes. The story is not being remembered or talked about, but I'm going to tell the story. Every chance I get, I'm going to tell the story, because over there in Haitian, on that island, they did prove themselves to be great warriors, even though their numbers were small. They were mighty. They were mighty. They were mighty enough to be able to stand up against the wolves of the devil. And they fought, and they were courageous. Now, in the history books, when I taught history, those stories weren't there. I was called in on assignments to speak to young people who refused to go to history class, who were tossing the books outside the window because they didn't want to hear anything about being born into slavery. And they figured they weren't a slave. They knew that there was a history prior to 1865. They knew that we walked the streets of the dynasty age and that our ancestors were kings and queens. And they demanded by the school district that we bring them a more placable history into the classroom at a time when they were kings and queens. So I brought it to them, ladies and gentlemen. I brought it to them, and I brought them a dynasty that they can get up with. I taught them to look at a people that were reigning for millions of years in perfect peace and harmony, and who had been on this earth long before Europe was ever discovered and long before Asia was ever discovered. That over in Egypt and Africa was the land that they said was milk and honey. And they resided in that land of milk and honey. And our ancestors ruled not with one man up front, but in duality, with female at his side. So I presented this to these young people and told them there was a time when we were great rulers and Africa was a great kingdom. And they took on to this philosophy and they wanted to wear the clothes of our great Hatshepsut and our great clothes of most of our priests and priestesses. And they understood that they could rule with their third eye open and that their chakras could be lined up again and they could use their ability clairvoyantly to see into the lives of their loved one and to be able to levitate. They wanted to learn these gifts and they wanted to be a part of it because they knew that at one time we were great people. We just weren't talking about it, and history class was only presenting slavery 101. Well, the district refused to perpetuate that heresy, and they wanted the students to learn something about how to become great kingdoms. And what I want to talk to you today about is the great kingdoms that existed over in Africa, West Africa to be exact. And I brought a book to help me justify what I'm talking about, because you must have a reference and be able to reference to something. And I'm asking you to share this book with me, and it is 750 through 1900 century, the centuries of greatness. That was the time of greatness. The West African Kingdoms by Philip Koshlow. This book holds within it the cosmoses of when we build the pyramids and Timbuktu's universities were being built at a time when we were great. Let us remember what we once were at a time when we were great, because it's still in us. Hello there, EJ. How are you? At a time when we were great. As a history teacher, I had sought out to make my children fall in love with their black selves and to be able to identify with the Egyptian kingdom at a time when we had Asar, Aset, and we had as above, so as below, at a time when we understood what the kingdoms meant and how they were building kingdoms and they were erecting men that were ruling for over 400 million years. So we must tell our children about the time when the hidden one, the unseen one was in control. Amen-Ra, Amen-Ra, open your arms and sustain me. Amen-Ra, open your arms and sustain me. Amen-Ra was on the scene, the hidden one, the unseen one. And he was opening his arms and sustaining our people. We've got to get it back like that again, where we have Amen-Ra on the scene. Give back your slave master's religion. It does not pertain to you. The Jesus that they are calling is not the Jesus that's going to answer you. Amen-Ra is, though, because he was the one that sustained us. And you must understand that Bookman Dadi said, unless you give back the slave master's religion, you cannot fight a war. Once you determine to give back the slave master religion, you could win this war overnight with crime-ridden streets and with all types of seduction and killing off of our people. We can change things overnight, but we must change our religion at the same time. I changed mine even though I spent money to pay for an education going to the training centers. But I saw that I could not do any better or do anything for myself as long as I carried the slave master's religion to keep whipping me into shape We can't get over the grain house like this. We can't keep going up and down and up and down with people taking things away from us and depleting us of things. I knew that the slave master's religion was one of the things that was holding us back. Even before I read about Bookman Dadi, I knew that we eventually will have to embrace our own prophets. And every community is given their very own prophet. Every community. And when that community is given their very own prophet, we must honor all the prophets. Hello, Albert Goolsbee. We must honor all of the prophets, just as we look at the prophet Jesus, we honor and respect Christianity, and we know that we can become crystallized in Christ. That's what it stands for. And Christ is just a title. We know that we can become submissive when we come to Islam, because we know that the honorable prophet allows us to be submissive, and we can be submissive in Islam, and we can acknowledge the prophet. We don't have to be all things to all people, but we must honor all the prophets. And then we know that when we look at our African religion, we can be salubrious diversity, and we can honor our spiritual past, and knowing that we can commune with the ancestors. We can also connect to our Baha'i brothers and sisters who want to bring peace on this land. We can get with them and bring peace on this land without having to convert to Baha'ism. But we acknowledge all of the prophets, every one of them, because they all came for a different purpose. And all of the religions have truth in them. So join me in celebrating salubrious diversity as we come together to understand that in our salubrious diversity, we honor all the prophets. If one should pray 5 times a day, we bow our heads to the east and pray 5 times a day. If we are taught to call on the ancestors, then we commune and go to the graves together to call on the ancestors. Hello, Bruce. Bruce Ward, hello. And we have got to come up. We are the greatest people they have left on this planet. And we're laying paralyzed by fear. The army of Judah was paralyzed by fear when they heard that a mighty multitude was quickly drawing near. We have to be like the army of Judah. We cannot be paralyzed by fear. And a lot of us are paralyzed by fear. We don't know what to do. We don't know whether to get on the pot and piss or get off. But we got to do something to get ourselves ready and to be in line and prepared when the storm comes. And the storm is not over yet. The storm is passing through now. And we know, so go Africa, so go us. So we know we are going to have to get in position. And just as I told you, we're going to have to live like our ancient people lived, and that is off the land. And we're going to have to understand that we as Africans had a quality of life. We had a pot full of food and gardens to feed our family. We were never without. We had abundant because the Egyptian kingdom believed in royalties and abundant, the highest quality of the stones and the jewels. But right now we are fighting over trinkets. We are going to jail for trinkets. None of us are fighting over the blood diamonds, and none of us are putting the diamonds in our bank and our vaults, and none of us have the riches of the minerals and the royalty of Africa, and they are going to jail for a mere pittance and putting their whole family on the line and spending their life in jail when we can live as royalty. Africa's kingdoms are great, ladies and gentlemen. I met people while in Europe that resided in Africa who were living in kingdoms. Don't let people fool you. A lot of these Africans who have managed to keep their bloodline clean and know who their fathers were are living in royalty right there in Africa. Hello, L.A. Harris, my favorite nephew. What are you doing? What's up? When are we going to Africa? I'm speaking of getting prepared and getting ready, because there will come a time when we will have to go back to that illustrious city. Even though our minds can't comprehend being there, we know in our hearts that we belong in Africa and we once were cohabitants of Africa. It's very vital that we should prepare ourselves and get ourselves ready quick, because our brothers are on the verge of a war. At any minute, it could kick off with Brother Julius having confrontation with people that want to do him one. The brother may have to call that army in before we get there. But it's serious, ladies and gentlemen. It is serious. And I'd like to bring Brother L.A. in, if he is available, to talk on the conditions of Africa and to speak and to help his auntie to explain this. Brother L.A., are you able to speak? If you are, show me how I can bring you on the screen. I have my dear nephew, my great nephew, here in the discussion with me, and I'd like to bring him on. He is well knowledgeable and capable of speaking firsthand on the lifestyle in Africa and what is currently going on there. Brother L.A., if you can put your hand up or say something and let me know if you're able to come in, and I'll bring you in. Hello, Pearlie Baker. How are you? Stuart Devante. L.A., are you in the room with us, and are you able to come on board and to let me click you in so you can speak? So tell me how I can do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to L.A. Harris, my great nephew, who is a researcher and who spent some time in Africa, and he knows firsthand what's going on. I rely on him to be our in-house resident today, and we want to bring him on the screen so he can talk to us and tell us what's going on. Now, you people on YouTube won't be able to hear him, but my guests on Facebook will be able to hear him. And LA, I don't know, do you need me to push anything? I don't know how to get you up there, LA. What do I need to do so you can get up in the window and you can start talking? I would like to get you into this discussion. Are you still in the room with us? And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that we don't have anything if we don't have land. And we're void of power if we don't have land to leverage. And we are void of power. You don't have any leverage, and you can't get into the game. And you sure can't make any decisions without any land. You have to leverage up your equity and whatever equity and your worth is. And a man is worth his land. And without land, we are effortlessly broke. And we cannot have it where we are letting someone colonize our countries and throwing our Africans out with the bathwater and taking over their land. We cannot, not a second time around. We got to be much more smarter so that this time around we will inherit the land. And we've got to be woke. So I say stay woke. Brother L.A., are you in the room with us? And, oh, okay. I see, he said, but working. Okay, maybe he's at work. He can't say anything right now. But most of the things that we have to watch for is our own brothers and sisters turning a deaf ear and becoming a house Negro. And literally becoming a gatekeeper of the things that belong to Mr. Enforcer. We have no business being a gatekeeper for Mr. Enforcer's things and stuff. They have taken enough from us, and they have stockpiled far too much stuff than we had ever anticipated, because right now we should be living in royalty. We should have all the things we need for our children, and we should be planning to have the legacies for our children, our grandchildren. They should not have to worry about how they're going to foot the bill for college, because grandmothers should be setting aside legacies for their children. And it's very vital that you should get an understanding that I am serious than a heart attack, because what we're getting ready to experience is going to make or break us. It will determine if we'll live our lives in lavishly and have the basic essentials and have abundance, or to live our lives squandering around, living off of less than what we should be living off of. We are the first world people. There is no way that the first world people should be subbing anything. We should be able to get over the grain house, and getting over the grain house would mean that we're going to run the doggone thing. Now, if we have been the ancient people, and this is not our first time going around, that we've been here before, and that we are old people, then we darn sure better act like the elders in the room and not like the pushovers. And some of us are being pushed over, and we have been pushed over enough. And the Africans are saying enough is enough. And they're throwing down and drawing the line and said, I double dare you, I triple dare you, because their mothers and fathers slaved for that land, and it must be in their names, and it cannot be into some Johnny-come-lately who came out of the Ice Age. And as a matter of fact, Europe wasn't even invented when Africa was on the scene. It was a part of Eurasia. And Asia was not in its own continent. He was a part of Africa as well. So Africa is an old, old country, and it's been around for a long, long time. It is where we will find Ile-Ife. That is the kingdom of the heavens that we talk about. So quite naturally, all of us want to go to heaven every now and then, and we definitely should want to take a trip to Africa, because that is where Ile-Ife lies, and that is where the kingdom of heaven lies. And there is much and abundant that waits us there. And we don't have to go there and make it our home, but we should have a home there and occasionally be able to go back and forth. But we certainly have to look at this fight that's going on now and determine if we have to be ready, like soldiers and watchmen, to get in the fight if need be. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of us are scared of a fight. And a lot of us don't know how to put our dukes up. And a lot of us only are able to operate with some heat. But Herod ain't here right now. And I told Herod to leave that heat at home, because our weapons are not carnal through the pulling down of stronghold. We work with magic. Say it again. We work with magic, because the Haitians have told us that this magic is not anything to play with, that it is for real. And the potions and formulas still work today that worked way back when. But you got to get a glimpse of this magic and know that it was left back here by your ancestors to use as your potions, to use as your powerful words, to use as your incantations, to use as your double two-edged sword. Some of you might have to sell your coat, your gym shoes, and all your royalties too, just to buy a sword. And that's not a physical sword. That's the two-edged sword that you are going to use, called your mouth. But you have to register that information in your mind. So you're going to have to buy books and material to come up to date with what is conscious and what is really real. But we can no longer stand by and watch Mother Africa to be taken a second time around. Now they tell you this lie that, oh, but you were sold into slavery by your own African people. Don't believe the hype. That is not true. And there's different kinds of slavery. And your people did not sell you into slavery for you to be mutilated. They had chattel slavery and they had indentured slavery. They had slaves that were working off their debts for 7 years, and then they were free. And they weren't beaten and mutilated and prostrated and whipped and raped. That is not how your people intended for you to serve indentured slavery. But it's very important that you should understand, conquer and divide was a great part of that. That's why they had the Willie Lynch theory. And he came up with a way to make a slave. And they offered seminars and workshops on how to keep your slaves into slavery. So it took about over 63,000 years to make a slave. A slave just didn't come into being, it had to be made. And that is turning the richer against the poor, turning the darker against the lighter. And these were the things that were done to turn us against one another. And never again should we be allowed to be turned against one another. Because they oftentimes said that they would know the Negroes by the way they loved one another, not by the way that they undermine each other. So bear in mind, you're going to have to take an oath that you are going to be dedicated and committed to your brothers and sisters and not undermining them. Because we do not have very much time, and we cannot be whipping our own people into shape that should already be prepared and ready for the war. We've sat around long enough, and we've cleaned our weapons long enough. Now it's time to get prepared, because anything can jump off. And whatever is happening over in Africa, it can be double that here in the United States of America. Because we're at war in our own communities, whether we know it or not. There is a great war in our community, and it's not all with gangs. I want you to know that. The gangs didn't bring this war to you. Somebody else did. And you have to be wise as a serpent and know that. But what are we going to do about our land here in the United States and our reparation? Well, we're going to keep on talking about it and keep on pressing the issue, because the people without land are lost. And we can't continue to be landless. We have to acquire some land. And land is very vital. It's very vital. And I don't know how many of you have land, but if you ever own property, you know the preciousness of owning property, because it gives you equity. Not like driving off the lot of a car lot and your car depreciating and you have appreciated the car, and the car has not depreciated, it is appreciated. So you have got to make sure that it doesn't depreciate, but vehicles depreciate, go up in value if you buy them in a every opportunity to snatch up all of the property that we can in our names, because it will come a time that only gold and property will be worth something. There will come a time when they won't even exchange paper money. Cash money won't even be exchanged. And we're getting to that point now. We're almost in the New World Order, and we're getting to that point right now. But it's very vital that we should come together to talk about things like this. I wish I could hear y'all pray or say something. Say something like L.A. was able to go and get the white coat and put it on, and he said something. Now, what must you guys do to get your white coat and to type something on the screen? L.A., can you tell them what to do so that they can actually be able to get in this conversation? Now, I know Eloy is at work, so maybe he is not able to respond. But once again, let me do roll call and see who's with us, see who's all here. Hello, Pearlie Baker. Hello, Pearlie Baker. Hello, L.A. Harris. Bruce Ward, hello. Hello, Albert Gooseby. Hello, E.L. Crenshaw. Hello, Anthony Asbury. Patricia Covington. Hello, Lori Randy and Pastor Frank Hammond. Okay, hello, Joe Taylor, Ralph Moore, Eugene King. Hello, Mark Lott. Always Morris, DJ Cash Horton, Arthur Ray, Brandy, Ross Andenda, Carter Morris. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Yes, we are speaking on this subject today. We know that our people in Africa are busy having their troubles and fighting for their land. There are so many of them that are living in little mere huts, and they don't even have gardens of their own to feed themselves, and they're fighting for bare essentials. How can a group of people come over and steal everything away and have the owners of the land to live off a bare minimum? It is hateful and it is unreal. And how can you go and have a meeting in Berlin to discuss how you're going to divide up Africans' land and hope that they won't find out about it? How stupid can you get? They must have known that eventually they were going to find out about it and they were not going to be in agreement with it. Well, they pushed the right button this time because these Africans are flaring up and they're fighting back and they're taking a position and a stand on the whole mere fact that we've got robbers and thieves and pirates that are still stealing and stockpiling and colonizing someone else's country. Now that has got to stop. It has got to stop immediately. And as I come on these airways, I hope that there are people that believe the same thing I believe. I can't get anyone to say anything here, so I don't know if you're on with me or what. So I got to be very careful about asking mere strangers to be a part of a struggle, because you might not be vested like that. But if you are vested like that, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you over in the Facebook here. I want to hear something from you where you can chat back at me. And you too, please go down and push the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. I'm monetizing my channel. Africa be given their land back. And under what pretense? Is it because they had ownership before? Or is it because they live in Africa and it's just because they can? Do they have a right to their land? Yes, they do. And their forefathers slaved that land and they owned that land, and there were no titles and deeds. It was bequeathed and passed down to each one of the lineages for their legacy. And that didn't even include Mr. Enforcer and his children. But Mr. Enforcer and his children are over there on those people's land, and they're trying to cohabitate on their land when they have no vested interest in it. Any law would say that you just cannot go and inhabit some land. You must have deeds and papers, and you must have having the deeds written up properly, and you must have the titles to the land. And if you don't have those things, then you came by it illegally. So our people, I want Julius to know that we are concerned about this topic and what is going on with them, and that we want to speak on the topic and address it so that he knows that us African Americans here are awake and we're conscientious about what's going on. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not sure if LA is going to be available later on this evening, but if he is, then there's a possibility of us coming back on and us having LA to speak to us directly about what's going on in Africa firsthand. So LA, if that's possible, we can come on around, probably around 8 o'clock if you would be available then, and you can come back and speak to us on the topic of the conditions in Africa. So I don't know if you heard what I said. Let me see if you're able to respond. Ella, if you can write something on the screen to let me know, and then I can dismiss this class and let them know we'll be back on about 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So we want to go ahead and dismiss out and let everyone go and take a break and get your libations and get your treats and everything. Like Yvette says, that's my girl, get your libations. And I'm not talking about drinks. Now, I ain't talking about no cold drinks. I'm talking about water, juice, and nothing stronger than juice. But we'll be back on at 8 o'clock, and we'll be able to bring part 2 on this discussion. We hope that you can join us then. And right now, the old lady's going to take a break now. And I want to say thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to become a follower. And those that are on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel. I am soliciting for members to subscribe. And I've had this channel for quite a while now. And I have other videos out there that you can go and see. So please subscribe. And LA, I hope you can join us this evening at 8. And we can see you back here and put you on the platform to talk. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say, oh, dabble and baba booey to you, y'all. And stay tuned for section part 2 at 8 o'clock. See you then. Thank you.